Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you might be. How are you this morning, Christos?
I am rocking. How are you?
I'm here. I've been fighting my PC for 2 days now, so I'm glad we switched it up a little bit so that we can, so that we don't have to worry about get into all the drama. So yeah. So anyway. Good to see you again. It's only been like 8 hours.
It's only been 8 hours, and I managed to recover my voice from doing 5 sessions yesterday, which was crazy. And I had a sound sleep. Like I fell asleep at 10, and I can't remember anything. I woke up at 6. Although I woke up with a step because I jumped out of bed because I was thinking about stuff. So it's gonna be an interesting day, and I'm thinking I'm gonna take it easy. Like we'll do some basic stuff this morning, and then our new patio is it a new garden umbrella? All right, so I need to set it up. Hey, CL Dubois is in the house. Are you here to pester us for more identity? Because your Twitter was brutal. Did we help you out?
I guess the real question is, did it actually work?
Exactly. Did we help you out in the end? Did you get it?
Did any of it really actually work?
And guess what? We have a different layout today. I hope everyone's liking it, right? Because we don't have a green screen. And hey, Luis. Hi, how are you? And today we're trying something different. Yeah. Like he's back for more identity. Yeah, we're doing Node.js today, looking at Leon's amazing app. So yesterday we did make some progress, but we had, I didn't have any internet yesterday, so I was tethering from my phone and, streaming from my fridge. JP blue screen or green screen twice, and everything fell apart. Oh, man, yeah. I'm off the fridge today. I'm not on the fridge. Yeah.
Yesterday was yesterday was a bit of a mess. This is it's Restream. So
Restream, yes.
Yeah, CL Dubois. We're gonna get it sorted though. We're gonna figure out how to be professionals again.
We want to be like you when we grow up, CL Dubois. That's it.
I know.
We want to be like you.
And I mean, for me, my machine is green screened like 6 times this morning. In fact,
again.
We were just talking. Christos and I were just talking before the show, and I got a phone call, so I stepped away for the call. And this contractor who was working on our doors, he came in and was asking for money. And I came back downstairs. I was gone like 15 minutes, and I came back downstairs, and my machine was back at a start screen. It was back at like a login screen. I was like, oh, I guess we had another one while we were gone. So
I know what you're doing this weekend. You're repaving your machine.
So anyway, I thought, we were talking last night, and I thought, if nothing else, let's at least figure out a way to keep the stream from dying when my machine dies.
Yes.
And I think we're equipped to do that. So
we're getting better. Also, we have a more decent background. I invested some money to cover the bare walls because it was awful, and we have some really funky 45 sign neon back there. I do a stream and I can get drunk on Friday nights. That's the goal for CL Dubois. Do a stream and get drunk. Can you do them in the different order? Can you get drunk first and then do the stream?
What if you do them both at the same time?
Yes. Oh.
Actually, now you wonder. I wonder how much different my job would be if we were to start day drinking.
I think we'll be fired.
Imagine how much we could get done.
I mean, yeah, but let's not do it on stream because there will be like public evidence of this guy.
Pretty sure those guys showed up drunk to this meeting. What's wrong with those two? What are you talking about? We never would have done that.
I was just a little bit tipsy by 11. Just a little.
I got video evidence of you, pounding 17 PBRs right before this call. I mean, it's not time stamped, but I can figure it out.
Yeah.
So okay, well, cool. So anyway, so you got some news?
We'll get some news. If you want to share my screen, we can go through them.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Okay. Azure SDK. We love the Azure SDKs. Azure.com/SDK. Is it /SDK or SDKs? I think I put a typo on that. So let's go. Azure.com SDKs. Is SDK or SDK? It's SDK. Okay. It's SDK. And you can get here, download them all. You can find the GitHub repos and whatever. And we have moved into a monthly cadence. I love that team. They're doing a fantastic job. Highlights for this month. it's not particularly great. Like not many news other than CosmosDB for Java now is at 4.14. Azure Communication Service SDK has been released. There's been some updates for event hubs for .NET and Python, performance improvements, and support for other credential types. Although if you are, do not event hubs support managed identities? Do you know? I think they do.
Yeah, I think they just added that. Like it was a relatively recent addition.
Hubs managed identity.
I love event hubs. By the way, they're one of my favorite services.
Hold that thought because I've got more news for you on event hubs.
All right. Look at that.
Yes. Event hubs.
Very nice.
To access event hub
awesome.
from an Azure. So you actually support managed identity, which takes me back to this, which was where is it? Did I overwrite my? Yeah.
Maybe you went to the same place.
So here, I don't get why you would use the Azure SaaS credential or a named key credential where managed identities work. The whole point is eliminating secrets or keys, and I don't see how that is better. However, it might support certain scenarios, right?
Well, I think so. The thing I used event hubs for the most were IoT devices, and
IoT devices don't have managed identities.
Well,
do you not do Azure Arc?
They possibly, but it depends on the device, and I think it would be. I think it'd be. It may just be extra overhead that people don't necessarily want either, right?
Deploy Azure IoT Edge workloads with Azure Arc. Yes.
So we had a cool thing with. We had a company. They were a mining company, a bunch of miners, not children, but like people who go down to the earth and
like proper
miners with an E, and they were out in they were in like middle of nowhere Australia, and that was one of the things was like each one of these devices, it's essentially going to get airdropped into the middle of nowhere. How do we make sure that it how do we make sure that that when they plug it in, it lights up and it can talk to everything and push data and get configured and everything? We used a Windows Autopilot and Azure AD and Intune, and it was awesome. I have to say, it was one of the coolest things. Like if anybody's interested in it, maybe we'll do that on a Wednesday with the IT pro guys, because it was super, super cool to like have this machine and you plug it into the network, and as long as it has internet, it just configures itself. You don't do anything. It was really, really cool. So I was pretty super pleased with it, and it does it based on the machine's identifier. So even if somebody was to like pave the machine, format the disk, whatever, if they end up installing Windows 10 on it again, Autopilot's going to take over, and it's like for those kind of like hostile environments where you don't have control over the device. Man, it was super, super cool. So
okay, good. Yeah, let's bring it to our IT friends. Next week, actually, we are going to look at analytics and logging for IT pros and how you can help troubleshoot stuff and get information. So that's going to be an exciting one.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay. Now, you did say you love event hubs, so I want to keep that a surprise to you. Did you know that now you can get graph change notifications in event hubs?
I did happen to see that. I was super, super excited about it because
go on.
Instead of having to have a function or something sitting there like constantly getting pinged with hooks, now you can push them through Event Hub, and it's cool because Event Hub is like a read forward journal.
Yes,
and so as things stack up in the back of the queue, your consumers are over here reading it and whatever. But like if your consumers die because they green screen, or because your function has a bad code push, or because your compute, whatever, something's wrong, your consumers can just pick it back up again wherever they left off. Like the Event Hub is durable, and it's like a super durable queue, but it scales ultra wide. And Event Hub, it's just such a cool, and for graph especially, like that's even better because you could do, you think, if I'm pulling batches off of an Event Hub and processing them, it's so much more. It's work when you get to it, or work when you can, right? Because the queue is going to fill up, and you work when you can, and then when you scale out if you need to. If you need to process more, you scale back in when you don't need to process as much.
Yep.
But having this nice durable thing in front of it's just I think it's just a huge win, especially for people who are trying to manipulate graph data. Because graph change notifications, there's a ton of data that comes out of those. Every time a user's added, every time a user's modified, every time somebody gets an email. I mean, whatever.
Yep.
You can set up subscriptions on all sorts of graph types.
Yes.
So yeah, we ought to put something together. Maybe we should do some change notifications with Event Hub with managed identity. I think it'd be cool. Well, maybe we should do that next week. Since next week, I think it's mostly just you and I all week.
That is true. Hey, Liliu Dallas 37. Hi, thanks for joining the stream. And our very good friend Daniel is saying, with non-MSFT proxy like Nginx F5 and Citrix ADC. I don't know what that refers to. But that came from actually we're getting chat from our Discord. Discord is actually fitting into that. Oh, that's amazing. Okay. The reason why this is exciting is because if you ever had to do change notifications with Graph, like JP has done, you actually have to implement a notification URL validation. So you won't receive notifications until you validate that URL. So the change graph the API needs to make sure that your function or whatever code you use can validate the URL. So that's extra code that you only do once and then you discard, but it needs to be there. So you have to write code about that. Now you don't have to do that, which is great. However, it does require you to set up an Azure Key Vault on top of the Event Hub. So there's an extra step for security, which I applaud. But just be aware that less code, more resources, but it makes it so much more scalable and so much easier to consume. So give it a go if you want to have a chance. I actually did a blog post that shows you how to get change notifications from OneDrive. So maybe we can extend that blog post to actually use Event Hubs instead of using Azure Functions now. Cool. Next one, it's a B2C update. We love our B2C updates. And this one is about the page layouts, which now bring the latest jQuery. Yes, you heard that right. We still use jQuery. Yeah, link to the blog. Let's put the link to the blog. Man, we can't have do we have blog? I added it. Did I add it? Oh no, I haven't added the blog yet. Okay. We have commands for blog, but the blog is aka.ms 425 so blog. And then while I do that, JP is going to go to stream element and add the blog command so we don't have to type that anymore. But our blog is there. Or you can add the slider, the magic thing that you did before that you showed me. Anyway, back to our B2C news. Now we have jQuery updated to the latest one and handlebars, which means that we brought the latest security fixes into those pages. Make sure you go and update your B2C custom pages if you use them to use the latest. Security above all.
Well, there's some other things in those new page layouts. Although I think right now there might be a little bug with them, but I know there are going to be some updates coming for like the unified sign and sign up with password reset link. That third one thing there. So anyone who's done B2C work knows that you have to deal with password resets. It throws an error and your application catches the error and then says, okay, you need to reset your password. I'm going to send you back to reset a password, which is, it's one of the things that if you're familiar with B2C, you're like, okay, I get why it's doing it, but it's incredibly unintuitive otherwise because you're like, well, I clicked the forgot password link and it threw an error. Okay. So now the new page layouts, the newest versions have this, you'll be able to do password reset from that button directly instead of having to do all of the extra work in your apps. Because of course too, if you've got 50 apps, do you really want to have that logic in every single one? So
nope.
That was pretty cool. So yeah.
Yeah, man. So that's exciting. I mean, it's getting better. We're getting better on those pages, and hopefully there'll be more things coming. Right. What I have next? Next, I have the page layouts, and then finally, passwordless authentication is now available GA. We did talk about that on our Wednesday stream with Stefan. It will be on our YouTube channel. And in case you ask, I think I have a command for that. Do I have a command? YouTube. I do. I love it. Okay. But I'm not able to add the blog because it signs me with myself. And on YouTube, we did talk about how to set up passwordless, and we did it with a YubiKey as well. But the good news now, it's. And by the way, if you didn't know, the passwordless configuration is free on every tier. So you don't have to be on a P1 or a P2 tier for Azure AD to get the goodness of passwordless and hardware keys like FIDO keys and stuff. So that was an announcement that went out last month. We just never got a chance to talk about it. So that's where we are. And finally, I have a somewhat unrelated but related security news, which is, guess what? WhatsApp has another bug that will let attackers hack your phone remotely and will allow execution. This is only targeting Android with iOS version. Sorry, not Android with iOS. Android with less than Android 9. Sorry, less than Android 10. So if you're running any version of Android before 10, then you need to update. If you can update, because I know some Android phones won't get those updates, but please make sure that you update, because in Android 10 they introduced the scoped storage, which means that they can use this attack vector to hijack your phone. The attack will be limited to that specific storage space, and therefore they cannot really do anything else. And it's very easy. They just need to send a malicious HTML page to link to your WhatsApp phone, and that's all it takes to hijack. Hey, Whistle42, thanks. Welcome to stream. It's nice to have you here. Yeah, hard pass on WhatsApp. I know. We moved to Signal. Maybe a year ago? A year ago. The whole team moved there. Me and JP have been using that for a while. I said goodbye to all my friends on WhatsApp. I said, if you want to find me, you know where to find me. You can also use the phone, by the way. You don't have to use a text app to find me. You can actually call me if you need me. So it is what it is.
No,
we love Signal. No,
I want a smartphone that doesn't have a phone in it. Just a cellular radio for data, and I'll be happy. I can't stand like being on the phone. It interrupts everything. Just don't like it. I mean, it's just a me thing, whatever. But
no, it's not you. I know that a lot of people don't like to speak on the phone. In fact, these days I only get spam calls and maybe a call from the doctor. That's it.
Yeah, and then since our phone numbers got since Google couldn't manage to, or Facebook couldn't manage to keep our phone numbers private.
533 million accounts. It is insane. But you can actually use Troyhan's Have I Been Pawned site to go and find out whether your phone was one of the 533 million that made the news.
Yep. It's inevitable. So yeah, I don't know. They say that the Facebook hack happened in 2019, but I'll be honest. Like, my number of spam phone calls about car warranties and home warranties has jumped in the past 2 or 3 weeks. So
nice.
Not a fan.
Not a fan.
But
not a fan.
So anyway,
what are we building today?
So last night, we were working with the code from Leon from LearnWithLeon.
And before we do that, big shout out to our friend LearnWithLeon or Leon, and he's doing a fantastic job with the community. He talked about identity these past few streams. And he helped onboard quite a few developers onto Microsoft Identity. And we thought that we want to take that code and you take it, JP.
Yeah, so one of the things we thought was first we just wanted to run it and just get it working. that proved to be a bit difficult yesterday.
Yes.
I don't know, we had a bunch. So we got a couple. It's like every time we did an npm install, my machine died, and I'll be honest, I'm not terribly confident it's not going to die today as well, but whatever, we'll work on it.
Every time he runs the npm command, things happen on his machine. I don't know what you've done, man. Honestly, it's just insane. You need to repave your machine. Besides, it's been 6 months since the last time you did it? It's long overdue.
Well, I know it is long, super long overdue. Long overdue. But we did have some we did have some luck. We decided, well, let's use Mongo from Azure, right? So let's use Mongo as opposed to using Mongo Atlas. Let's use the Mongo head on CosmosDB.
That's true.
And,
I mean, you don't have to, but a lot of the audience there were like, well, we want to see this running on Azure. Let's do this.
Yeah. So yesterday we went to the Azure portal and we created us a Cosmos database, and we configured Mongo on it. So let's get back over here.
Let's get back into it.
We're gonna make this work today.
Man, we need a soundboard. I had such a good idea for a song right now, but it's fine.
So let's see. I'm going to search for.
So where were we? We set up the MongoDB yesterday on Cosmos, right? And then we updated the code. Or we tried to update the code, but it didn't work. So today we're determined to make it happen because JP thinks that he has pinpointed the place where things are not working well, or that value or property that is messing things up.
Yep. So what I'm going to do first, let's run what we had. So because last night, we saw that we almost got it working last night before my machine started to die.
Yep.
So one of the things I decided to do is, instead of trying to run it on Windows, I thought, well, let me try to run it on in WSL and Linux on Windows. The thinking was, well, at least if there's a crash, the crash will happen in WSL and not here. So let's go run this.
Yeah.
So this is the same code that we
WSL kernel.
It's the same code that we had last night, which is great. So let's take. So I'm going to get a new window here, and let's go see if we can hit localhost 2121.
2121.
So HTTP localhost 2121. Okay, so we're up and running at least. So it is running. Server's running. And if we create a new to-do, that takes me to localhost didn't send any data. Okay, so let's see what's going on. Oh, it says the app crashed. Okay. You know why? Because we're not connected. We're not connected to Leon's Mongo anymore, right?
Oh, that's true.
He's not going to leave it open forever.
Well, he hacked your machine once. He doesn't have to install a rootkit multiple times.
So. Instead, which is fine, because you don't want to leave your Mongo database out on the internet, because that's how you end up on Troy Hunt's site. So that's cool. So let's go and let's make this work with Cosmos. That was what we were working on last night. So let's make it work. Let's make it work with Cosmos. So there were a couple of things we found last night about how basically how like the Mongoose client does certain things. And it sounds like the one thing we're really going to have to do is we just have to make a couple of changes in how it's going to connect. And in fact, there's a doc on this. So we actually have a doc that talks about this specifically, about using it with Mongoose, which I was really pleased to find. So it looks like the big thing that we're going to be doing is we've got this is in our connect. So let's see, where are we doing a connect with Mongo? So here's our connect. So we've got our database string, right, which we were using before. And then we need use the new URL parser true. We need use unified topology true and use find and modify false. So that all looks good. So we've got this connection and we've got these. Okay, so that looks good. So we need to set up our connection string again, which we did with in our environment file. So let's go do that. So back in Azure, we've got our connection string, and we're going to go grab this connection string here.
Do we need to change anything from that string to make it compatible with Mongoose?
That's what we're going to check out. So we have our CosmosDB host, and then we've got, so this, it looks like the format is going to be a little bit different. And in fact, one of the things that we advise in the docs is to do this a little bit differently. So let's do what our people say will work. So the first one we have is our CosmosDB _user. And our user in this case will be our, oh, wait a minute, we're going to do this here though.
Why?
Oh, yeah. We will. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing. So we've got our user. We've got our... so we've got user. We've got our password. We've got our DB name, which is our database name. And then we've got our port. And we've got our host. So we've got our CosmosDB.
You actually have to dox yourself by putting the password over there?
Well, the password's already right here anyway, so... I mean, we are essentially going to concat a string together anyway. Yeah. So instead of just having the copied and pasted string, we'll do it this way.
We're offering public services here, so please don't hack our MongoDB while we do that.
So we've got our user. So our user is going to be our database account name, and that is Mongo. Let's see, what do we call it? Mongo Cosmos APDA. So that's the name of the instance that we created in. Here we go. Here's the username. It's the name of the instance that we created of Azure CosmosDB. So let's go grab our username.
Yes.
Which we just had. In fact, I'll put these up side by side, and we can just grab them and move them over. Be a lot easier.
Love it. Yep.
So our password's pretty easy. Here it is. Let's get our password, and luckily it's long enough that I guess maybe
is it Hunter?
Somebody...
Is it Hunter?
No, it's very much not Hunter.
Hunter 2. Sorry, see, I forgot.
We'll come back to the DB name because we're going to get that somewhere else. So then we've got our host, which is just Mongo Cosmos jpda.mongo.cosmos.azure.com. So there's our host.
Volta.io is asking who's our guest for today. Our guest is JP. He works as a developer advocate for identity. He hasn't been with us for a while, but he's back for more.
I'm actually kind of disappointed that Bolt thinks
it took them that long. It took them that long to forget you. What does Mongo and Cosmos have to do with each other? Oh, yeah. So CosmosDB is a NoSQL database, and it has a couple of drivers. One of the drivers, and I think the default one is SQL, but it can also configure CosmosDB to work with Mongo. And it technically provides the same API surface as Mongo, so you can move your Mongo databases to Cosmos and benefit from the scalability, performance, stability, and all that stuff. Yes. So I hope that makes sense, Phil Snubble, because he's asking on the Microsoft Developer Channel. Thank you for the questions. Keep them coming.
Yeah, Cosmos is pretty cool. It's got a bunch of different
drivers, right?
Got a bunch of different drivers so that you can access it in all sorts of different ways, which is super cool. So
drivers for Cosmos. While you do that, I'll find a link to Cosmos.
So the last one we need is the database name, and we'll go to Data Explorer. We'll go take a look. I think we called it To-Dos, but let's just go check to make sure.
Yep.
If our Data Explorer will load, I'm pretty sure we called it To-Dos. So while we're waiting on it, we'll just put that here. To-Dos. Okay. So we've got our settings, and we are. Oh, there we go. So here we go. Yes, it's called To-Dos. So good. So we've got that. So now, really, about the only thing we need to change in our database connection is that instead of we're going to use we're essentially going to concat a big string here.
Yep.
So our string, the string that we need is this string. I'm going to grab this here. Let me just grab the string out of the doc. There we go. And this is really just going to concat a bunch of stuff together. So we're going to end up with our host. We're going to end up with our port. We're going to end up with our database name. We're going to have SSL true and the replica set in this case is going to be global DB. And compared to the connection string that we grabbed directly from the portal, this is considerably simpler. It doesn't have nearly as many options as the other one had. And my hope, at least, is that is ultimately what's going to that's ultimately what's going to make our connection work correctly. Yep.
Yeah. Let's see what happens.
So the other thing that we also need is we need to turn off retry writes.
So you found this information in Stack Overflow, is that it?
No, this information, we actually have docs on connecting with Mongoose.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, nice. We do. So that's what I'm using. So okay, cool. So we've got this here. So now let's run it, I guess, right? So we're gonna try to run it over here in Windows, and let's see what we get. NPM.
Yeah, we got docs. We got docs for everything. Do you have a link to the docs or stuff? You know what? I'll find it. CosmosDB Mongoose. Okay, I'll find it.
So something still doesn't like something here. Let's take a look. So it's an unhandled promise, which was probably in the same thing again. Okay. So command create indexes is not supported prior to authentication. Okay.
Oh.
So are we calling that somewhere in our code? Let's see. Create indexes. No, so we're not calling that anywhere.
So it tries to do it by itself.
Let's see. What is... I wonder if we need to change our... I think we probably need to go change some code and how we get connected here. Yep.
Might.
So let me get this out of the way, and we'll make this full screen again. It'll be easier to see. So we've still got all of our data in here. That's good. In our server, we're doing this ConnectDB, and ConnectDB is in the database.js file. So we're doing our connection here, and it looks like I think our connection is all okay.
Okay.
So we may need to go look now. So we're initializing the Mongo store, and I don't see anything specifically here that we need to potentially worry about. So that all looks okay. Let's go to our to-dos root and see what we're doing in here. So we created to-do. So this is to-do.create. So we got get to-dos. Let's just start with getting.
Yep. Let's get getting.
Let's go
you got God, right?
Model.
You got God.
You got God. I didn't. I got last night very badly, in fact.
I love it.
So this is our to-do schema. And our model in here is to do, and I believe we need to change this to be collection 1. That is the name of our
In
collection in
the Cosmos, yes.
Yep. So we will try to run this again. Terminate, yes. Let's do another npm start. Okay, so we're still erroring on command create indexes is not supported prior to authentication. Did we not put the right...
Google it.
We will. So those all look correct. So what is calling create indexes before authentication? And then now I'm also kind of wondering if perhaps I don't have the right version of the library that works. So let's see.
Oh, that could be it.
Yep. So let's look back quickly at our doc just to make sure.
Fuel Snabel says bing it. Let's bing it.
So we need, let's see, this is Mongoose 5. What version of Mongoose are we using? So we're using 5.512, so that's cool.
And we have the supported version for 3.6. Do you think it's the version of the Mongo driver that we used? We used 3.6 instead of 4.
Yeah, that's a good question. Why don't we see? Nope. 3.6 is what we're supposed to use, so that all looks good. Everything looks good there. So... Oh, you know what? We have to do a collection per. So I think we're going to need a user collection too. I wonder if that's part of the problem too.
Okay.
Let's get back to our Explorer here, our Data Explorer. We're going to go create a new collection. So we got our to-dos database or collection of collections, I guess. So we've got to-do collection 1. Let's do another new collection. We'll call this users collection 1.
Okay.
Oops, sorry. We'll use an existing. Use an existing database. We'll do. I can't click the down thing because of this silly 1Password thing.
Oh.
Okay.
Fun times.
New collection. We're going to use to-dos, and we'll call this users collection 1. Unlimited's fine. For the shard key, we will use Microsoft ID.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. We won't provision. We won't do. We won't dedicate any of the provisioned throughput to this one. We'll just let it share the parent. So we use our existing one. We got our new collection, unlimited size. That's fine. We've got our shard key, and we talked a little bit about the shard key last night. It's really just a matter of like how do we partition our data in a way that has good sort of distribution across many different partitions. And a lot of that.
Should we explain? I mean, we're explaining now, just for people that were not on last night's stream and that haven't done sharding before.
Yeah. So, when you think about, say you've got, tens of millions of rows or hundreds of millions or billions of rows of data.
Yep.
If you have that in like one big table, it's going to be hard to, so it's a lot of work to go and index or do specific searches in certain places.
Yep.
And
I crashed. Is it JP?
I'm now staring down the barrel of a critical process died green screen. So,
oh God, what's wrong with your machine, man?
It's always something around here. I swear.
It's always something.
It's funny how like after all of, I haven't had really a big problem with these recently, but oh well. Anyway, so I guess we'll talk about sharding while I'm waiting on my PC to come back up. But
glitch in the matrix. Yeah, so, Bolt is asking about it's not a 19-inch neon, it's a freaking 45 so neon. It's the commitment to the cause. Man, we are doing this. We're doing this. It's gonna happen. So your machine is restarting now? Is that what you're telling me?
My machine, my machine is restarting. Luckily, I had my laptop here as a backup because I kind of had a suspicion that this might happen.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Probably a good idea to go ahead and just let it ride.
Buy a new machine. Send me yours, then you can buy a new one.
I think it's bad. I suspect it is a video driver this time around. Because I got a new one a couple days ago and it's been screwed up. Anyway, okay, so sharding. So we got a ton of data, right? It's all over the place. And you think if I've got to search an index through a huge table, that's going to either end up with an even larger index or which is going to take forever to search. And so the concept of sharding is, well, think about your data queries and think about what kind of distribution you have of your data in terms of what does it take to get from, like, what kind of queries you're going to do, and what is a value that's going to come up in your data over and over and over again that would give you good distribution. So, like, if you were doing surveys of people in the entire United States, maybe zip code would be a good one, right? Because zip codes are fairly well distributed across.
Segregated, yep.
Maybe, or maybe use a different key, right? You could use area codes, maybe even, something that gives you good distribution. The other side to that is if you're going to be querying something like with the same key over and over and over and over and over again, there's also an idea of like, well, for example, in our to-dos app, app, I'm always going to see my to-dos. I'm never going to see yours or anybody else's. They're always going to be mine. Right?
Correct.
And so,
well, I hope so. I hope you can't see my to-dos because it's a mess.
So having a partition key or a shard key of user ID, that might be a good one, right? Because with user ID, well, now we've got there's going to be a lot of distribution of that, and we're going to almost always query for your to-dos. We're always going to say, give me Christos's to-dos, give me John's to-dos, whatever. And so as an extension is, there may be other keys that make a lot more sense when you think about that, of like, well, I'm not going to want to see my 6-month-old to-dos. I might want to see my to-dos from only last week and the ones that are going to be upcoming in the next month. So maybe a shard key, of date makes sense, right? So maybe we use date as a sharding key, and we lump things together in 1 week increments, right?
But then again, that will only be an efficient sharding strategy if you have a lot of to-dos per day. If people are using it scarcely, then it means that it won't be an efficient way for us to store their data.
Yeah.
See? All comes to users, what they do.
So there are a lot of things to like consider, I guess, right? In terms of what am I going to do, and how's my data going to be queried? And sometimes too, you get into things like composite keys, where you may have multiple keys, but your partitioning and your sharding is ultimately going to happen on a single key. But you may concat data together. So you may have user ID underscore, start date of Monday. That could be a key in itself, right?
Yep.
And depending on how much data you're looking at, of course, there are lots of different ways to shard your data. But the whole point is that now you get lots of parallelization, in that you can query 25 partitions at once and pull things in from all over the place. So.
Yep. He's coming back. I promise you, folks. He's coming back on his main machine.
Oh no, feedback. No. So yeah, what a cluster. Anyway, sorry, I took the wrong person out. I meant to take my old self out. I took Christos out instead. Sorry, Christos. Okay.
It's a comedy. See, you go away for 2 weeks and you come back, and this is what happens.
I know.
You're not allowed to not do streams anymore. That's the deal.
You think I'd never done this before?
So Skywalk1411 is asking, are you guys Azure devs? We are devs. We're not Azure devs. We do everything with anything. Like today, we're doing Node.js with Mongo, but we're using Azure. We work for Microsoft Identity, so we are slightly biased on that aspect, but everything else is a free game. Any language, any platform, we're more than happy to play around and have fun. Does that answer the question, Skywalk? What do you do? What do you develop? Are you new? Have you done development before? What's your poison? What's your choice of platforms?
Yeah.
Love these questions.
These are great questions. Yeah.
These are great questions. Yeah, keep them coming.
Here's the thing about identity. Virtually everything at Microsoft touches identity. Yes. And so because of that, because almost everything touches it, and you have to use it in one way or the other, we, I guess, have the advantage of being able to see and work with a lot of different teams who are doing a lot of different work. So that part's pretty cool. And both of us have done software dev for a long time, and we decided to come over here and try to help people. If there's anything that developers struggle with a lot, it's identity, because identity is kind of a pain to deal with. I mean, kind of can you blame them?
It's an opinionated topic, and a lot of esoteric terms, and it becomes a challenge quite a few times. So we totally get it. We totally understand you.
Yep.
We go through these pains ourselves as well.
All right, I'm back, and
on your proper machine, and I can see your monitor, which is great. Thank you.
For some period of time. Okay, so we added our users collection in Cosmos. So we've added that second collection, did we actually add that second collection? Did it actually get created?
Let's go and check.
I'm not entirely sure. So let's
I don't know if I can trust you.
I don't know if I can trust myself right now, to be quite honest. All right. So we got our CosmosDB. Let's go here. We're going to go to our Data Explorer, and we will see if I created that second collection.
Let's see what happens. Why is Mongo held as a weird keyword? It holds it for moderation when you type it on both channels, which is, I don't know, sounds weird. So you're connecting, yeah. So you're connecting to MongoDB through Cosmos. Well, Cosmos can actually expose a Mongo API, so you can use your Mongo code, your Mongo libraries, to connect to Cosmos via the Mongo API. And I was going to put a link there to say, oh, you know what? I think I put it. No, I haven't put it there. There are a number of database, NoSQL databases that are supported in Cosmos. So you can use Cosmos as the repository, more or less. And then the interface is down to you. SQL, Mongo, whatever else you choose. I'm going to get the
So
link.
We've got our two collections. We've got our to-do collection and we've got our users collection, and we've updated both of them.
Yep.
So let's see if we get a build this time around, and it's still breaking. Let's see. The error is create indexes is still not supported prior to auth. Okay, so let's go figure out what that means.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so create index. See, Stack Overflow. So let's see. Create indexes requires authentication. So let's see. So we got DB name, DB user, DB password. Okay. So that doesn't actually tell us much, but let's check the environment, make sure I had the right things in here. So we've got Mongo Cosmos.
Yep.
That's our user.
Yep.
Our password is that password that we got out of the portal, which
mm-hmm.
we can always go check that again to make sure. Our database name is ToDo's. Our host is that, and our port is that.
So what are we missing?
Our database name is correct. I guess let's go check that password again just to make sure.
Where do you put the collection?
Sorry?
The collection name. Is it only used in code?
It's the DB name. Or sorry, the DB name is the database. The collection names are used in code.
Okay.
For Mongo, we use one for each. Essentially, we use one for each model. Yeah,
I see. Okay, and we have the users collection one, right?
Yep. So we have users collection one, and we have to do collection one.
Okay.
These schemas, string, bool, and string, those look fine. This string and string, those look good, right?
Yep.
So if we look at, let's check our database connection. This all looks okay. So we've got our host, our port. Oops, we've got our host and our port. We've got our DB name. And then, we don't have a password in here anywhere. We're not using the password here.
Is that it? There you go. That's why you can connect. Connection denied.
I mean, who could have guessed, right?
Us or, you know what? Maybe there wasn't a password when Leon was writing against the local Mongo?
I think he had an IP. I think he had an IP allow list on it.
I see. Okay, maybe that was the reason.
However,
now we know.
So let's take a look here. So we've got user password, DB name, host, port. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, you know what? It's of course it's a me problem.
Because what?
Because I didn't have the authentication block in here for how we authenticate.
There you go.
Imagine that. We do identity and security work every day for 10 years.
It's coming back to you, this identity thing is coming back to you. Continue coding like that, and then, who knows, one day we could be experts in this thing.
All right. So it looks like we're still getting an error, and we're back to the same one that we had yesterday. So the expire after seconds option is only supported on the TS field.
Let's see.
And this seems to be something specifically with when you're using Cosmos
and Mongoose,
and Cosmos with Mongoose. Yep. So
if you're checking the browser, please share the browser. We can only see your ID.
So the answer right now is that Cosmos currently only supports a TTL index on the internal _TS field.
Okay.
So it's a Cosmos specific field not available on Mongo clients, right? So it's a system property. So
compatibility mode.
You work around this by using Connect Mongo's compatibility mode. which is a less efficient timer-based approach instead of native TTL index.
We're okay with that for now, if we can make it work.
So here's our connection.
Yes.
And then, so we set the TTL, and then we have auto remove in this auto remove interval.
Yes.
Which is essentially using a timer, and so sounds like a timer, essentially a client-side way to say, essentially ignore this index after so long.
Seconds. Yep.
Rather than writing to the index and saying, please delete this index after this duration, right? And saying, like, it's more of a client-side thing than a server-side thing. So let's go look at all the places that ConnectDB is called, because I believe that's where we're going to have to. Well, no, let's see. Mongoose Connect. No, we should be able to do it right here in Mongoose Connect, right?
So while you do that, I'm going to answer Very Sticky Rice's question. I mean, that's a fantastic username. Very Sticky Rice username. He's asking, is this the basic Azure ID? So what JP is using here is Visual Studio Code. You can get it for free. It's a free download. It works with most of the major languages out there, and probably some that we haven't heard before. And we're not connecting to Azure via VS Code. There are extensions for Azure if you want to connect from the IDE. Some people don't even call it IDE. There's a whole debate about, is VS Code an IDE or is it a text editor? You decide what it is for you. We're not going to tell you if it's an IDE or a text editor. And we jumped onto the portal. We jumped onto the Azure portal from time to time to go and fix things. Fuel Snubble says it's an operating system. I mean, it can do so many things. Why not? Yes, it runs on more than 5 processes in the background. I'll tell you that. There's so many workers for VS Code.
That's true. There's so many things that you can do with VS Code. So, okay, so we've got our ConnectDB in here in database.
Okay.
We've got, so let's see, the way, so this is, let's look for Mongoose connection. Where is that being called, if anywhere? Mongoose connection. Here we go. It's in server, the one place I didn't look. So here we have our Mongo store.
Oh, I can see similarities here. Nice.
So in here, we are going to, I'm going to put some new lines here. So in here, where we configure this sort of initial Mongo connection, here's where we are going to set the fact that we're going to do auto removes on an interval, as opposed to relying on the TTL of the service to say, hey, go delete this index when you're done, or go delete this index after this period of time.
Yep.
So we've got our auto remove interval, so that's all set up, so that's good. So let's save this, and we will run it again. Okay. Now we don't have errors this time. So Mongo Cosmos says Mongo is connected, and it's got our server name here.
Yes.
So let's see if we can connect to it before my machine dies again.
Please don't run npm.
I hear the fan spinning up, so there's no telling what it's about to do. Okay, so we're going to go to HTTP localhost 2121. Here we go. So we're here.
Wait, are you signed in? Are you signed in?
I haven't. So I'm signed in to my. Oh, okay. Something else we got to go look at. So I'm signed into my. Azure AD is trying to sign me in, but it can't. It says this application with this identifier is not in this directory.
Is that not the same error that we're getting yesterday?
We have a copy and paste error in here.
I bet you're missing the 4. You're missing the 4 from the people were like, how the hell does he know that? You're missing the trailing 4 on your app registration.
I do believe we are missing the trailing 4. So for those of you who were not with us yesterday, we're in the Azure Active Directory Admin Center, which is aad.portal.azure.com. It is not. You can also get to this through the regular Azure portal. It's just by going to the place. So it's not super. What you're going to see isn't going to be dramatically different, but if you're doing work with Azure AD, it is a bit of a. It is a bit convenient. So you can go to aad.portal.
Wait a minute, you and your magic sliders over there. How did you do that? You typed it faster than I was typing it. He's got all the keys there. I need to be in the admin portal.
So we've got the admin portal here. Let's go to our app registrations. I'm going to search in here, all applications. Okay. I think we called it. Do we have something here about Leon or maybe Mongo, Cosmos? I can't seem to find it. What did we call that one? Let's see.
Oh, wasn't Node? You can search by your existing app registration parcel, right?
Yeah, let's go get the first octet. That should be enough. Nope, still can't find it. Where did it go? I know we did this. Well, I know we
did it
registered
yesterday. You didn't delete it by any chance, did you? Oh, you know what? Search by date. Go up. No. Now you can filter by date. You can filter by date now, right?
I know, but it doesn't seem to. Maybe I don't have the preview
don't have
feature.
The preview. You said no.
So, is it learn? Yeah, that's why. The search is pretty bad, even though it's getting better. Okay, so let's copy our.
He's not using the new search, by the way, so don't get discouraged. He's just an old person.
I can't turn on the new search.
It's your test tenant. You don't deserve it.
Apparently not.
Well,
okay. So here's our LearnWithLeon Express app that we created yesterday.
And I bet you're missing the 4 at the end.
And it would look like I'm missing the 4 at the end. So let's go back to our config.
Fixed it. Did we not fix that yesterday? Or did it crash and then it?
No, we fixed it in Linux yesterday.
Oh.
So if we look, here's our client ID, which is in the config. So we take this, watch it.
Pay close attention.
Sure enough, there's a 4 at the end. So our client ID was incorrect. So it's just a copy and paste error.
It's a JP error.
Yep.
We have lots of these this morning.
Let's go back to localhost 2121. And it's not HTTPS. It is just HTTP. So here's localhost 2121. And we're going to try to create a new to-do list. And that's going to take us to Azure AD to sign in. And what has it done?
Oh,
it's done nothing. It did something. We don't know.
I know why. Should I say why it is? You need to remove the ID token from. Okay.
Let's walk through debugging it.
I gave it. So Weasel had the same issue. So he's looking to see what. He had the key problem.
Oh, right, the secret.
Yeah.
So when we do a new to-do list, if we take a look at the network, we take a look at the network trace, right? So we hit our login page, and our login page redirected us over to Azure AD to go and log in. So first we hit the authorized endpoint. The authorized endpoint, that's the thing you send a user to when you want them to sign in, right?
Yep.
So there are 2 of them. There's authorized and there's token. So in authorized, this is going to send us, if we successfully do it, it's going to send us back some data that our app can use to go and sign users in.
Love it.
However, if it doesn't work correctly, it's going to send us back an error. So let's go look at this call. So we got our headers. We have our response headers. We got our request headers. And it looks like we don't have the response data. Okay. That's not terribly useful.
Well,
here we go. So here's the form data that was submitted. So if we look into this, we will see
invalid request.
We will see.
Oh, yes. That was the first problem. Correct.
Yep. So this application is not configured as a multi-tenant application.
Yep.
The usage of the common endpoint is not supported for such applications.
So I suspect that the people that are following us today and did this with Leon the past couple of days have already spun up a multi-tenanted app registration instead of single tenant. Me and JP tend to actually default to single tenant most of the time. That's hence the reason why this happened. So if you haven't seen this error message, it's because you were following Leon's instructions to the letter.
So the thing to look at, so we talked about multi-tenancy some yesterday, and of course we've talked about that a lot here. So when we sign into this common endpoint, when we use common, and that's what this error message is talking about, that's saying I want anybody in Azure AD, anybody with an Azure AD account to be able to sign in. So that could mean us at work, it could mean you at work or you at school, or any kind of account that is a Microsoft work or school account can use this, or potentially even your consumer account, your noobslayer26 at hotmail.com account, for example, can sign in. What this error message is saying is like, this app is only available for a specific directory. It's not available for the whole world of Azure AD. It's only available for people within a specific organization. So what it's saying is you need to change that. And so what we can do to change that is You could always put your tenant ID or your directory ID in here. If we look back in the Azure AD portal, you'll notice we have directory tenant ID. So we could put this ID in here if we'd like. Or you can use your domain name, or you could use a custom domain. So I have a custom domain on my Azure AD directory, and so we can use that.
He's so fancy.
Instead. But you could also use like onmicrosoft.com. So if you've got your onmicrosoft.com domain, which is the default one that you get, you'll notice up here in the corner, it says jpda.onmicrosoft.com. So that's the one you get by default. If you don't know which ones you have from Azure Active Directory, from the main Azure Active Directory blade, you can click overview and you'll see what your primary domain is. And you can also do custom domains over here on the side. So custom domain names, this is where you can add additional domain names for people to sign in with. So these are the ones that I've got. So, various different ones over time and of various different projects that have happened. Anyway, so we've corrected that problem. Let's see what we get this time. So let's clear our network log. We're going to do a new to-do list. And
see what happens.
Ping, ping. We're right back where we were before, which implies that something else went wrong. Yep. So let's go back and look, and let's see what this one says. So now this one is saying the response type of ID token is not enabled for this application.
And explain why that is and why it's not working.
So if we look back at our code and our configuration, you'll notice we have response type code ID token. And there are two of them, right? And you and I, Christos, we did quite a few talks on authorization code and all these different things. But the short version is that what we're saying when we use code ID token is we're saying, hey, I'd like for the identity system for Azure AD, when a user signs in, I want them to send me an authorization code, which is a one-time password, right?
Yep.
Essentially a one-time code. I'm saying I want this one-time use code, and we're going to use that to get the user signed in, right?
Yep.
That's what code means.
Is there an audio problem? Someone's saying there's no audio.
Oh, really?
Can you guys hear us again? Well, Amame72, oh my God, saying they don't have any audio.
Oh, no.
Could be a you problem. We haven't had any issues so far. I don't know if something else happened. Okay, other people can hear us. So thanks for confirming. So I think, Amame, you need to check your audio settings and get back to us if you still have problems.
So authorization code is a one-time use code. And so after you sign in, we're saying, hey, when the user signs in, please give me back this one-time use code that I can use to know who they are.
Yep.
It's sort of the standard, right?
Yes.
So it's sort of like, imagine if I called Christos 6 months ago and said, hey, Christos, I want you to write down this password, right? So he writes down a password. It's like our secret word. It's our safe word. And I call him 6 months later and say, hey, I need you to tell me what that password is, right? And I say, I've got some other stuff here, but I need you to tell me what that password is before we do anything else, right?
I lost the post-it.
Not acceptable.
It's in my safe.
He goes and he gets the password that we agreed on 6 months ago. And he says, hey, this is the password. And then I'm like, okay, cool. This is the info that I wanted to tell you, right?
Yep.
That's essentially what authorization code is. So authorization code, we get this one-time code in the browser, right? That's what gets sent back to your application.
Correct.
But instead of that it's in itself is not a token. It's not usable for knowing who the user is.
Nope.
So instead, your server is going to call back to Azure AD and say, hey, I've got this authorization code from this user, and I've also got this client secret. I've also got this password, essentially, this pre-agreed upon secret, and I want you to, so now you know who I am. And then the server says, okay, cool. And it sends you back data of an ID token and an access token to call APIs or whatever you need. So it's sort of this three-legged thing where the user gets sent over. Let's go watch this happen. So the user gets sent over to the authorized thing, which is where they try to sign in. Mm-hmm. And what's happening is Azure AD is saying this ID token is not enabled. And that's because instead of trying to go through this extra link, when we have ID token written right here in the response, we're saying, just give me the token straight up. Just give it to me in this first pass, and I'm not going to do anything to validate you. You're not really going to validate who I am, but please give me the ID token, right? And an ID token is essentially an identifier. It's a way to say this is user ABC, and this is their first name, last name, user ID, whatever. And some people call this the hybrid flow. I don't like this flow, and so we don't use it very much.
We don't say that name here. It's not allowed.
So we don't advise that a lot of folks use it. However, because we're saying give us an authorization code, and we're saying give us this token at the same time, because that's a bit of a security problem, because now we're going to be sending this token in the browser. Because that's a bit of a security problem.
Yep.
In order for Azure AD to do this, we have to tell Azure AD explicitly we want to do this. Like we have to say our intent. So let's go look at how we do that first, and then we'll come back and look at how we get rid of it.
Yeah. We'll say how to do it so you don't do it.
Well, there's a big difference between I got to get work done and I need to do it the right way, right?
Yeah. It's fine. I'm just messing with you. Go for it.
If we go back to our Learn with Leon app that we had from earlier, the Learn with Leon Express, and we're back in Azure AD app. We're back here in the portal. If we come in here and look at authentication, you'll notice we have web. And since we had set this up yesterday, we don't have to go set it up again. So we've got our web.
Before you continue, can you take the authorization code thing sliding from the bottom? It's just stuck there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
So we've got our redirect URIs. This is where we're going to send our apps back. And then we have this implicit grant and hybrid flows, right? So by checking this box, essentially the error message that we saw is saying you haven't allowed that. So what we're going to do is by checking this box, we're going to say, yeah, okay, that's cool. You can do it. That's what we're saying is this is the shortest path to clearing the error, but is it also not the greatest path for clearing the error? But we're going to come back and look at it in just a sec. So we've checked ID tokens and we've saved it. Now what we're telling Azure AD is, okay, it's cool. We can do the insecure thing. That's cool. You can do that. But we have to really be explicit about it and say, okay, we absolutely are going to do it this way. Mm-hmm. So let's get our network trace back up and let's watch what happens when we sign in this time. Presumably this time, we may have cleared all the errors now. And so let's see what happens. Okay, so we got signed in, sort of. Mm-hmm. So let's look at our network. So we've got our login. So that happened. We hit authorize. And then what data did we send back? Let's go see what kind of error we got this time. Oh, so this time we did get an authorization code. Okay. So you'll notice in the response, we got a code. So this first piece of form data that came in is a code. And this code is essentially a one-time use password. It's not it's not like encoded data or anything like that. There's no way to look at this code and derive anything from it, which is why it's secure. So because this code is hitting the browser, right? Because it's in the user's browser, this code gets sent to the server, and then the server sends it back through its own back channel. So because you can't derive anything from this code, it's much more secure to use this code and then let the server talk to Azure AD directly to exchange this code for something else, right? So we did get a code, which was great, and we also got an ID token. So let's go look at what's in our ID token. So we got an ID token because we asked for it and because we said, yes, please give us that. So let's go look at what's inside of our ID token. So you can typically tell these are called JWTs, JSON Web Tokens. You can typically tell because a lot of them start out with EYJ0, EXA, IOI. So if we look at what the data that's in that token, we see we've got an audience, which is which application ID should be allowed to read this token.
Yep.
We see the issuer, which is who issued said token, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the issuer is the Azure AD directory, the Azure AD instance that did this. Issuer is one of the primitives. So you should always have an issuer if you're dealing with JWTs.
Yes, please.
It's really important that you know your issuer, because if you get a token from an issuer that you don't know or don't trust, that could be a problem, right? So checking the issuer is a very important thing to do. And most of the libraries do it for you, so it's not something you have to do.
Yep.
We've got some other things. These are just time windows. These are just timestamps for when it's valid, when it's not. We have things like my name, my object ID, which is my unique ID, my username, And then we have this other one called subject or sub. And subject is essentially my immutable ID. That is my never changing ID. So that as long as my account exists and I use this application, the sub value will be the thing that's always the same. And the sub value is one of the things you could store in your database.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if my username changes. It doesn't matter if my name changes. None of this matters.
Yep.
This is the one piece of data that will always identify me specifically in my directory for this specific application. And that's a big difference. It's a combination of the user themselves and the application. There's also the OID, and I think that's what we're using in Leon's app is the OID or the object ID. This is also a unique identifier, but this is a unique identifier that is consistent across all applications within a directory.
Mm-hmm.
So if we created 15 new apps, my object ID would always be the same.
Yeah, your account will always be the same across of them, right? But the sub will be different.
But my subject ID would be different in each one of those applications. So it's a bit of a privacy concern too, right? Because if you can track a user from application to application, that could be a potential privacy problem.
Yep.
And so in order to get this, you also have to explicitly ask for it by doing what's called by using what's called the profile scope.
Do we recommend then that people use the sub over the object ID? And would that be a problem for an organization, for example? Like, let's say you work at Contoso. Would that be a privacy issue within Contoso if you were able to track the user's object ID across multiple apps?
It all depends on the apps and the company and the kinds of users that are coming in.
Okay.
So there may be some kind of apps where like privacy is of significant importance, and so you may not want to do that. Generally, I'd say most of the companies that we work with and most of the developers that we talk to, most folks inside of businesses are using Object ID because it's available and it's consistent. And you're at work, so your expectation of privacy at work, of course, is very different than say when you're giving your data to some other entity, right?
Yep.
But nonetheless, if you don't need a trackable, consistent ID across every application, there's really no reason to use it because what's the big deal, right? It does make it easier to like find that user later when you're like when you're searching in the portal and things like that, because you won't search for them by their subject ID, you'll search for them by their object ID. So generally speaking, most folks are going to use object ID, but you could always start with the subject or the subclaim and then move up from there if you need it.
Okay.
So this is what the Passport library that we're using in Express, this is what it's ideally, hopefully going to start consuming soon. So now we said we don't want to use this. We don't want to use ID tokens. We don't want to allow ID tokens to come over because you notice I've got an ID token in the browser, right? So we've got a token in the browser, not really an ideal scenario. And so you'll hear this called implicit flow. You'll also hear it called hybrid flow. Or sorry, an implicit grant. You'll also hear it called hybrid flow. It's hybrid when you're returning an ID token, which has user identity data in it, but you're not going to use it for access tokens to access other services, right? That's what they call hybrid.
Oh, man, I don't get it. It's bad naming. And it's bad practice. Yeah. Please do not use implicit grant whenever you can.
Yep. So back in our app, if we don't want to use this, so we're going to uncheck this because we don't want to use it anymore. We're going to click save, and it's going to warn us, say, you're disabling implicit. Are you sure you want to do that? And we're like, yeah, we absolutely are sure we want to do it. So what that means is that in our response type, we got to change that. So in our response type, we need to drop ID tokens. We're going to delete ID token from there. Mm-hmm. And we're going to let the app run again. Yep. And now we're going to go try to sign in again.
Yes. And I bet you it's going to work.
You think?
It's going to work.
You sound confident. Let's see.
I believe in you. I believe in you.
All right. So I'm going to refresh the page just so we've got it. Cool. Okay. All that looks good. Let's go do a new one. Oh, so we still something's going on. Let's see. So just for the sake of completeness, let's clear any cookies or anything like that we may have. So we'll clear our site data.
Yeah.
Don't think we have any cookies. All of our cookies are gone. Cool. So we'll do a new. Let's refresh the page. Refresh. Cool. So we got our refresh. We got our network. Let's clear so we know we're only going to see new stuff. And let's try to do a new to-do list.
Yes, please.
Okay. Oh.
See, I told you I had confidence in you. It was your cookies.
So if we look at what happened, our login redirected us over to Azure AD. So here's our redirect. Mm-hmm. We hit the authorized page, and you'll notice in here, response type equals code. It was only code.
Yes.
It didn't have ID token as a part of it, which was great. So we did that. And then a bunch of cookies get set by Azure AD for its own use so that when you come back, you don't have to type in your password all the time. And then you'll notice there's some other data that we send in as well. And then when we look at the data that was returned, let's go back and look at there. If we look here, now the only thing that's in our browser is this big long code that we can't do anything with, right? So the only way that we can do anything with this code is for our server to send the code back to Azure AD along with its client ID and its client secret, or its app ID and its app secret. That's the only way that we can redeem this code. And so because of that, typically your client secret, you wouldn't broadcast out over the internet like we do 3 times a week.
All the time.
Typically, it's called a confidential client, and that means it's because it can keep a secret, right?
Yep.
So typically, like your web server where you're going to run this, like in production, isn't necessarily going to have just anybody can go and access the server, right? Only certain people are going to be able to access it and interact with it, whatever. You can also use a certificate. And when we're using a certificate, the client secret, there is no secret. It's now a certificate. And there's no secret that gets sent over the network, which is pretty cool. So instead, the private key stays on the server, and it does a signature at the bottom of it does a signature on a certain piece of data and sends that back to Azure AD along with that code. And then Azure AD can use a public key to go and figure out, this was signed and it's validated, and thus everything's good to go. So cool. So now we can sign in, and I'm assuming if I came here and tried to create a to-do, do things. Let's see, flatten PC.
Oh yes, please.
New video card.
What? You can't get a video card. Is that a wish list or a to-do list? Because
well, I've got a bunch of blue screens and green screens, so clearly I need to do something, right?
But it could be your driver on the graphics card. It can't be your graphics card, is it? You think it's blue screening because of the graphics card?
Who knows? I mean, I don't know. It's probably Windows. It's got to be Windows. Something in it's. I mean, Lord only knows what build I'm on. I mean, I don't even know what version of Windows this is anymore. So, I mean, I'm sure it's a bug. I'm sure it'll get fixed.
Wait a minute. Are you saying to me that you're using preview builds on your main box? Have you not learned your lesson?
Duh. Of course. Why? I mean, what else would you do?
No, I have a separate laptop that I do my demo builds, and then I have my main machine that does the main stuff.
21359, is that? I don't know what that is. I don't know what version that is. Is that not what you're running? Anyway.
How did you get that?
Just type in ver or winver.
Okay. On run.
So anyway, so I have 3 things to do. And these are so good. So we're connected. So we're good. We're ready to go. So one last thing we'll look at before we move on is let's go look at what's happening on the server side, right?
Under the hood.
So under the hood of this. So let's go look at that what we call the authorization code flow. Let's go look at that. Let's go look at that and see exactly what's happening. So I've got Fiddler running. I wonder what Fiddler's going to do with Restream. We're going to be really curious.
That will be super interesting. Yes.
See if this survives.
So Caparino is saying hasn't blue screen in 10 years. You're so lucky, my friend, because blue screen happens to us more frequently because we do try new software all the time. And Phil Snabel is saying sometimes his blue screens are related to USB Wi-Fi issues or some USB random stuff. Yeah. You don't have a USB Wi-Fi, do you?
I do not. I think Well, when I looked at if anybody's interested, after we look at this, we'll go look at WinDBG and we'll see exactly why my machine keeps green screening, because we'll just pull up the dump and analyze it. Okay, so let's go back to our app, and we've got Fiddler running. Fiddler is an amazing tool. It's
interceptor.
It's a proxy. Yeah, it's an interceptor. And the really, really cool thing about it is it lets you essentially find. It essentially lets you look at everything that's happening, monitoring, or lets you see everything that's happening on your machine, network wise. So
you should filter some stuff there, by the way, because this is crazy. What are you sending out?
It's I think it's restream stuff. I'm trying to find the node.
Yes.
Trying to find the node process that's running, and we'll scope to that one.
That's a good point, because otherwise there's way too much info there.
Node starts with an N. Let's see. So we've got 41, 68, 27,000, and 5912. Okay. So let's do a.
What is a hub proxy? It's an HTTP proxy, not a hub proxy. It proxies all your HTTP requests before they leave your machine, so you can see what kind of traffic is happening.
Yeah, so it's an outbound proxy. So when we're making calls outbound, it's a way for us to see what is our machine sending, what traffic is happening over the internet that my machine is sending. I think what I'm going to do is probably the easier thing is just going to be to filter. We'll just hide that whole process. In fact, we'll hide that whole thing. That way.
Oh, there you go.
I'll have to get my magnifier out too, but we'll do that in a sec, because that might green screen the machine. Anyway.
You use Wireshark or Packet Analyzer. Yeah. These are available tools as well.
Yep.
So do you sign out?
So I'm in a private window, so I'm signed out.
Ah, nice.
Okay. So I got to type in my password. And then, I got to remember my password.
Hunter too, man. How can you forget it?
And then because I'm in a private window, we're going to go fire up. I got to do a multi-factor thing. So do that on my phone, fingerprints and nose prints and everything else. I guess we can stay signed in. So whatever. Okay, cool.
And while you're signing in, I want to say to people, make sure to follow us on Discord and make sure you subscribe on our YouTube channel, because whatever we discuss here, you can follow up and ask us questions on Discord, and the videos will always make it up on YouTube in the end. Therefore, you can catch up on demand if you can't make it live. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out any notifications and new videos that come up. And now you can take it. JP, all yours.
So I'm trying to find, I kind of want to remove the filter, because I'm not seeing, I think I may have been too aggressive with my filter and taken too much stuff out.
He filtered HTTP. There you go. You filtered HTTP.
I think I filtered too much. So let's see. How do I remove my filters? I don't even know how to do. I haven't used this in so long. I've kind of forgot how to do it. Where are my filters? Oh wait, filters. Here we go. Oh no, I don't want to use filters. I want my whole thing to come back with filters, and seemingly I have filtered myself into oblivion. So instead, I guess we'll try this again.
There you go.
This time with more cowbell, I guess. All right, let me get a new private window up, and we'll go do this again. New. Oh, I do need to restart the server since the proxy has changed. So we'll terminate that job. Let's do another npm start. So npm is up and running. That's all good. We're all connected. Great. And it looks like we have found, I'll get my Zoom open here in just a minute. It looks like we found it. So I think we're good.
Cool.
All right. So we've got our server running. We'll get this window up over here. We've got Fiddler over here. Localhost. 21. We're going to do a new to-do list. Go over here to Azure AD. We're going to sign in. We are going to get my password in here. I've got a multi-factor again, which we will do.
And you get that for free, by the way.
right? As a developer, you don't have to write code. And if you look at the solution that Leon, our friend, has put together, there's no code there for multi-factor authentication. You sign in, and if somebody has your IT admin has configured that for you, then multi-factor authentication will be part of the process for signing in. You don't have to write code. Can you magnify the screen? Yeah, I think people are asking for the for Fiddler.
I'm doing that. I am doing that right now. Here's my magnifier. So let's zoom in a bit and
we got you, Manas. We got you.
Let's see what we found here. Okay. So the first thing is we made this call over to. Let me make this a little bit smaller so it all fits here in the window. Okay. So these are all the sessions that we went through. So the first one, and we're gonna delete. I'm gonna delete these other ones because there are just too many of them. So the first one we have here is our authorized call. So this is the thing where we went to go try to sign in. So this is when we got redirected over to go to the user. And then this is when we're typing in our password and all that sort of stuff, right? So things are happening with most of this big block here in the middle, right?
Yep.
Things like automatic log on because I'm coming from a work machine and stuff. All that kind of stuff is attempting to happen. Mm-hmm. And then ultimately we post our credentials here during this login. But you don't have to worry about any of this because you don't develop any of it. That's all for the folks over here.
That's all done for you.
Yep. So that's all done for you. So we can skip most of that and let's keep on going. And then let's look here. We end up, I'm going to delete these just so we can get back to them. So then we end up at our open auth, our localhost 2121 auth OpenID return, right? Yep. So that happens. And from here, let's see. Let's take a look at what we had in here, right? So this is going to show us pretty much what our browser saw, right?
Yep.
So we get our return here, and our return has various pieces of data in it, right? So we get this redirection. It's going to redirect us over to to-dos, and that's what it does. It redirects us over to to-dos, although I don't see the node call back to the server in here. I wonder if node doesn't pick up the... I wonder if it doesn't pick up the proxy automatically. Although I thought that it did. It doesn't seem right.
Yeah, you're missing a couple of...
So if I was to turn, let's turn it back on first. Let me turn it back on for a sec. So I got this back on.
Mm-hmm.
And if we, let me refresh this quickly. So let's see. Yeah, it doesn't look like the node stuff actually made it in here, which is kind of a bummer because I really wanted to look at it.
But can we not just do it on the window on the browser?
So we can just do it on the browser, but we can't see it in the browser because the browser isn't actually doing it. In fact, that's the whole point, is that the browser itself doesn't actually do anything with it.
So why is it missing the node process?
Maybe because Node doesn't pick up the system proxy automatically. That would be my guess. That we probably have to tell Node explicitly use this proxy when you're going outbound. But that's okay because we can still look at it in another place. So let me pull this thing up and I'll move it over here so you can all see it.
So you're using Postman now?
Yeah.
So you're gonna does Postman do client credential or does it do implicit flow?
Well, we can just do it manually.
Okay.
Right. So let me see if I've got some in my history that we can just pull up, or we can just do it again ourselves. That's fine too. Let's do it again ourselves. Okay. So we don't need this window anymore. So let's go look. Let me get me a new window over here with the right account.
Yep.
All right. So we got our thing here, and we're going to do localhost 2121 again. Okay, new to-do list. This should sign us in very quickly. Let's get our dev tools back up here. That's F12. So we get a new to-do list, signed in. Everything's cool here. So here's our authorized call, right?
Yep.
So this is when the user goes to sign in, and it happens silently because I'm already signed into Azure AD, so I don't have to do it again. But we should have still gotten in our return an authorization code, and we did. So here's our authorization code, right? If we take this authorization code, let's go over to Postman and let's do it.
Let's hack it.
let's do it directly, right? So in Postman, let's do a new collection here.
Man, you got quite a few things in there.
I know, there's a whole lot. So what we're going to do is we're going to do, oh, look, I've already got it in here. So we're going to do a post to login.microsoftonline.com / my directory name, like my tenant, whatever, OAuth2 v2.0 token. So the other one for authorize, we go to the authorize endpoint. Here we're going to go to token, right? And in token, what we're going to do is we've got to post in some data in the body, and it's in form URL encoded. So the first thing we need is the client ID. We're also going to need the client secret. We're going to need the code.
And the direct URI.
Let me go ahead and put the code in here. We're going to need the redirect. I never remember if it's URI or URL.
I think it's URI.
And we're going to need, do we need the scopes? I think we need the scopes in here too. I don't know. We'll try it and we'll see. I can never remember. So let's go get our data. Let's go get our pieces. We'll just grab these out of our Node config since we've got them right in there. And since Node has to know about them, then Node will be the thing that deals with them. So we got our client ID here. Let's go get our client ID.
Don't miss the 4.
I will not miss the 4 this time. How can I make this smaller? It's like all this.
Oh, at the bottom. There you go. You found it. I think this is at the bottom that actually collapses it.
Here's our client ID. Here's our client secret, right? Okay. And then our, let's see, and our redirect URI is auth open ID return. Let's see if this is enough. I think we may need the scopes, but let's see what Postman gives us this time. So, we forgot the grant type. So request body must include the following parameter grant type. Okay, so that's
which is code, type.
Right? Yes. So the grant type, it's either code or it's authorization code. I can never remember directly. Yeah, let's try authorization code instead. Authorization code.
Oh.
And so this was correct, and exactly what should have happened, right?
Yes.
So it says it's invalid, and it says it's invalid because the authorization code was already redeemed.
It's a one-time use, remember? So you can't really use that same code.
Yeah, so that's actually really, really good, because that means that if somebody, say, was sniffing your traffic or trying to do something, like you had a bad extension on your machine, or there was something like something happened server side or whatever, that if somebody tried to steal your authorization code, as long as your server's already redeemed it, you can't be redeemed again, right?
Which is great.
Which is a great thing.
Did you see that thing about token binding that is coming? Like, we're working on token binding. Did you get a chance to read that email? It's exciting.
I have seen that. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting discussion. A lot of interesting discussion on token binding. It's going to make I think it's going to make the internet a very interesting place. So this is what your Node server is doing under the hood. This is what Express is doing. Is it sending these bits of data back in along with that code? And then I hope I've got one in my history that we have.
Some of these things will be handled by Passport.js. So you wouldn't be passing the grant type. So that's what Passport.js and Passport AD do for you. So technically, you just need to pass the client ID and client secret and the redirect URI, and then everything else is handled for you. But if you want to see how the cheese is made, then this is one of the calls that takes place behind the scenes for you.
Yep. And one of the things to note too is, we send back relatively detailed error messages, especially in cases of these kinds of exchanges. Like, this tells us pretty clearly that the code was already redeemed. There's an error code that you can use to go in Google or go and search for. So if something's not working, it's a good idea to try to look under a little bit and to know exactly what's happening sort of in the back and forth.
Yeah. Usually the browser logs tell you enough to figure out what's happening.
Yep.
Usually.
Yeah.
Or if you're stuck, you can find us on Discord.
So the other thing we could do, of course, is we could also go and get let's go get an authorization code.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So in order for us to go get an authorization code, we're going to have to kind of hack around it a bit, right?
Yeah.
Although one thing we could also do is just, no, we won't modify the code. We'll leave the code as is.
Don't change the code. By the way, you'll need to create. Oh, he blue screened again. No. See what happens? See what happens? Damn.
You know, it worked well for a while. We had a good run.
We had a good run. It was amazing. Oh man!
So we got another critical process die, but you know what? I think we got far. We got through. Some of the stuff that we needed. So
we did indeed.
Yeah.
Now, before you go, I know you're dying to go and rebuild your machine today. Because what else are you going to do on a Friday afternoon? Can you please post the code on GitHub? Like put it on one of your GitHub repos. Remove the secret, please, before you post it. So if people want to see how it works with Mongo, then we can put some steps together so they can actually go and do it.
Yeah, for sure.
I might spin up, we might write a blog post about it so people can follow along if they want to run their Mongo on Azure and do it securely with Azure AD as well.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll push the code up this afternoon. I mean, it's going to be largely the same. The Cosmos stuff will be different, so that'll be cool. And then we'll also have the Azure AD changes to use. I'll have in there a placeholder for tenant ID, and we'll have a placeholder for, and we'll switch it to use authorization code.
Yeah, we'll put the instructions on how to do it because it's the Azure AD configuration plus your code changes.
Yep, that's correct. So
so they both need to be changed. I was hoping that it will ignore it if you don't have the implicit, but if you have ID token, then you don't have implicit switched on, it fails. So it doesn't work. It's not ignoring it.
Yeah, I mean, my assumption would be is that if you followed Leon yesterday,
yes,
your app registration would already be configured for implicit.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it wouldn't have worked yesterday either.
Correct.
So, it's sort of the advantage is being able to turn it off because just because your app isn't using it doesn't mean that somebody with knowledge of how those flows work couldn't go and craft that same kind of a request, right? So it's certainly great that your app wouldn't use it, but it doesn't prevent somebody from trying to create a request like that. So
correct.
We want
you to stay safe. We want you to fall in the pit of success when it comes to identity. Hey, don't forget to rate someone before we go. We need to do that.
Yeah, where do we want to? Let's see who's streaming today. Where do we want to go?
That's a good question. I think we have quite a few friends. Child Codes is streaming. Instafluff is streaming. I don't know. I've tried to rate Instafluff a couple of times and it failed. So I don't know if it's us. Or if it's
I think he may have it turned off because every time I try, it tells me that maybe we're not big enough to rate Instafluff.
Yeah, maybe we're not important enough to rate Instafluff. I mean, he's amazing. If you haven't seen his streams, he's one of the best people out there. He's a fantastic streamer.
Really,
yeah,
it really is. So
I would say let's hit Child Codes because she's doing some good work there.
All right, and then we'll be back. Let's see, we'll be back when on Tuesday.
Tuesday, my man. Tuesday,
we'll be back.
Absolutely.
Trying to put the band back together normally again. Get back to
writing some code and being us.
Yeah, writing code and being adults again. So, all right, let's go over to. You said we're going to go over to
Child Codes
here. All right. Well, everybody, hey, thanks for hanging out with us today, and come back and see us on Tuesday. Join the Discord. Hope you all have a great weekend. If you have any questions, issues, comments, concerns, personal attacks, hit us up on Discord or on Twitter and let us know. And other than that, let's go over and let's get out of here. See you, everybody.
See you all. Have a nice weekend.